We are live. So welcome everyone to our community share live with Lee Grabarczyk. Lee, I'm going to let you tell people who you are and what you're talking about today. And so it's all in there.
Very good. So yes, Lee Grabarczyk with Soulful Mandalas. And, you know, we had talked about community shares a while ago, and I thought the idea of letting go would be very helpful, or certainly as a story for me, as a way of reflecting my own process. And I wanted to do it from a perspective of my direct experience, not something that was, I don't know, book, disconnected, intellectual, but really from that basis of direct experience, because the evidence of that, for me at least, has been overwhelming in the support of that letting go and adapting to whatever it is that's going on in life, because it clearly worked, and I am living proof of it. So there you go. Just a little background before we get into the story of it. So, you know, people will ask me, like, well, you know, how do you get into this? And I do have a family that has intuitive abilities, on both sides, my mother and father's. And I do have a background, and so they have that going on. And I did start very early on with intuitive awarenesses. So I came into a process of reading people's auras. I could see that as a kid. I was fascinated with spirituality at an early age. I loved numbers and systems, and then that quickly translated into things connected to geometry, which is also a numerical system. And in high school, I loved it. And earlier than that, I loved my Etch-a-Sketch and I loved my spirograph. So I was all in on the geometric principles from the very beginning. And I didn't really know what to do with any of that. I have, when I tested on that IQ-Iowa test, I tested very high in three-dimensional rendering, the ability to envision a three-dimensional object through a flat, open plane of that object. And all of this stuff just kind of, I just didn't know where it would go to. So over time, my artistic stuff kicked in, and eventually I went to Pratt Institute, and I got a degree in art direction. And I love art, and I love communicating through the artistic world. I got into marketing and all of that stuff. And in the process of doing that, I kind of found that you have to follow your passion. You follow your passion, and that's where it is that your truth comes out. Because in the connection of that passion, the skill connected to whatever it is that I love was the thing that I started developing and becoming better and better. And then the intuitive stuff, as I was progressing, because I've had an interest in this since I was in high school, I would do different classes on intuitive training. I would do classes on all sorts of forms of spirituality, and you name it. And I started doing these, you know, I started when I was about probably in the 80s, getting these dreams, these visions of sacred geometry. I had one that came in, it was very real. I remember I felt like, you know, like Close Encounters. I had this image, and then I had to render it, and I drew it, and I drew it again, and it had some significance. So I'm in this vibe. I don't know where it's going, but I'm following it. You know, there's something about, I don't know, just because I don't know where the thing is going, doesn't mean that I don't continue on. Like, it's as if I have a lantern in front of me. I can see a few feet in front of me. I keep moving, but I never see the whole thing, nor was I meant to. I have learned over time that one of the greatest life lessons for me is, and I don't think I'm alone in this, is learning to trust. Trust is a space of consciousness that allows me the opportunity to be able to move forward with things without having to understand what's going on. Otherwise, I'm preconceiving the idea of what I think it may be, and then building it out before it has a chance to reveal itself. So I'm going on and on and on about, you know, like this, I have this thing that I've created. I have a friend in the dream, the sacred geometric shape, which was a triquarta, which is a three-pronged thing. That triquarta was very detailed. I showed it to them, they liked it, and it kind of fizzled out a little bit. But then I started doing these things called the medicine wheels, where I would take stones, crystals, and type affirmations, and I would build them out into these little platforms and print them and then give them to people. And then I would say they have some quality and people would like it. And then that also kind of came and went. So now I'm just progressing and I'm doing like just general kind of, involvement in spirituality. Then I went to a woman I was down in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and I was in a bookshop with somebody, and a book fell off, and it was called Being Alive is Being Psychic. And that was it just happened randomly. I read the book, and then I sought out the author. And that at that time, getting a reading with somebody would take 6 months. I had to wait. And I met with her and she goes, "You're going to be doing channeling." She said, "You're going to be doing reading. It's beginning with automatic writing, etc." And I said, okay. And I just kind of kept an open mind. And then I started writing, and just intuitively, just responding to something. And then that kind of grew. And then one day I was in a restaurant with 2 friends and I started doing a reading spontaneously. They had not asked for it. It just happened. It was just occurring. It just out of nothingness. And they went, "What the hell was," because I was telling them why their leg broke when they had a skiing accident, what that was about, and it was accurate. And I could not even tell you what that was coming from and what that was about. It just was my opening thing. Then I was through different kinds of trainings. I was tested through the Duke University testing, and that came out to show me that I had abilities. I kind of pursued that. And the point I'm making with this is that I never went, "I'm going to be a psychic." I just kind of followed it because life kept feeding me this thing. It said, "This is what you can do. Do it." And I would just follow the lead. So anyway, I got caught up in the world of commerce and marketing and businesses. I did a lot of educational publishing stuff. I was working for a company. And then I said I was working with a woman who was handling these projects. And I said, "You want to I'm kind of tired of running everything here and we're not really getting honored. Do you want to start your own business?" I did it whimsically. She said, "Yes." I was like, "Yes, okay. We don't have any money. We don't have any clients, but fine." It worked. Had to follow and trust the lead of that. She thought about it over the weekend. She came back. She said yes, and we began. And we did okay. We started a business. I had employees. We had a place. It was lovely. And then I continued to evolve and do that kind of work. But then over time, it wasn't fulfilling. And there were other things that we kept talking about, we kept saying, "There's something else we can do here. We need to create a product." And I said, yes, but couldn't figure out what it was. It just was unknown to me. But what life was doing is it was saying, "This is not the right fit. This is not where you're supposed to be." And I was desperate and holding on to it with both hands, but it kept being stripped from me. Clients were disappearing. We weren't promoting the way that I wanted to. We weren't building the way, we weren't getting anywhere. And all of a sudden it started falling to pieces. And it did. And eventually it failed. Now, this thing that happened, and there's a whole, I think for anybody, at the moment that things fall apart is at the moment that things can be put back together again. At the moment of the greatest despair, at the greatest hurt, at the greatest loss is the greatest opportunity. And that opportunity expressed itself because within a very short period of time, the business failed. And for anybody who's had a business, especially for 20 years in which I had it, and to pack up and then put all of that away and wrap that up, that's really sad. Have a relationship that I had going on, had that blow up. Have a property that was going to be deeded to me from somebody who I had paid for through a landlord, who was promised, given to me, and then reneged on, pulled away. Have a car accident on top of all of that. I went into a very deep depression, and I really did not know what I was going to do. I went and I took a coding program at Rutgers University so I could do full stack development. I was struggling and doing my best. Hundreds of resumes, tons and tons and tons of interviews. Nobody responded. Nobody, if they did respond, they just did it as a kind of a kindness. Maybe they knew somebody and they did it as a favor to them. Nobody wanted me. Nobody. And I was desperate. And I was taking these like really crappy jobs just to get by because I didn't know what to do. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to end up working at a convenience store. Like, this is it. Or I'm going to just live on minimum wage somewhere or whatever. I just did not see any way out. Nothing. And that's exactly what I needed. I needed that lesson. Because in that moment, I stopped making such a fuss externally and started looking internally. I started looking at the things that matter to me and I started to begin work on them. So one of the things that I was doing is I started kind of like cleaning up a little bit on what I was doing in my own self-care. And through that process, I ended up meeting somebody. At the moment that I started to do something that took care of me and not like me in the world of commerce, but me as a being, life said, okay, here you go. We're going to give you this person. So I met this woman and then she said to me, oh, I know somebody who's a psychic who you should meet. I was like, okay. So I go ahead and I'm excited because I'm like, you know, this is great. And I meet this person and I start talking about this thing that I did a long time ago with this drawing, this triquarta, this guy. And he's like, oh, okay, can I see it? And I said, okay, I'll draw it for you. So it was pretty simple. I drew it out. And he goes, oh, I can tell you who that person is through the drawing. I can make sense of that. And I said, okay, well, tell me. And he did it. It was accurate. And he goes, this is going to be your thing. He goes, I see this happening. If you've ever had an epiphany of like what I need to do, it's electric. It's as if everything becomes just, it's this feeling of being a lightning bolt going through you. Like that moment of, this is true, pay attention to this. This is really, this matters. And when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, I don't know where this is necessarily going, but this feels right. So I started doing these drawings. And I remember I did my very first one for somebody for very little money, and they loved it. And then I started doing it and I drilled into it and I went, okay, I want to do an affirmation with this. I want to do it in the language of that person. And then they kind of like got it. And then I would do another one and do another one. Now I've got a collection of these things and they're coming in and other people say that they want them. I'm like, okay. Now I'm not doing really intuitive work. I'm not doing any kind of reading. I'm just doing little designs. And then I start putting together a series of cards. I have like little like poster things that I've done of some of them. And I would go to these shows, these little teeny psychic fairs. And you know, there might be more people as vendors than there were people attendees. There would be just maybe, I don't know, maybe you would get like, there'd be 15 vendors instead of attendees. And at one of these events, this woman goes, because I said something to her that was kind of in the reading. She goes, oh, I have an event tomorrow. Do you want to go? I have a friend there who knows art. This is beautiful. Maybe we can get you set up in the art world. And I was like, okay. So I go to the event. She's not there. She's sick. I'm like, okay. So she goes to me, I'm going to set you up. I'm going to have you do readings. Would you like to do readings? We're slammed. Everybody's here. I said, look, I have never done this before. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm willing to wing it. I'm trusting, letting go, adapting, all of that stuff I'm talking about. I said, fine, let's go. And it went well. I did 15, 20, I don't even know how many. It was accurate. And she goes, you're good. And I was like, thank you. Do you want to do more? I was like, sure. And then I ended up meeting with one of her friends, actually the woman who wasn't well. And these people started telling her, I found out later, if you do not represent him, you're going to regret it forever. Do it. Because at the time, she didn't want to. So all of a sudden, now I have this person doing this representative work for me. I've got other people I'm doing artwork for, and I'm off. and again, no train. It's not like I went to like intuitive class or took classes. You have to do this. We tell you how it's done. I just did it from my gut. And as it's growing, people start helping out. People, when I'm doing something that has value that works, the universe bends over backwards to let me know it's true. I'm doing this event, this music and whatever. There's this music and the arts, and I have a little booth set up. And I've got my artwork, and I've got it all ready to go. And the woman who's doing it said, doing the banner work, she goes, you know what? I think I'm going to give it to you. You've been coming here. You've been running your art out here. It's yours for free. Like, what? Yes. Then they made a mistake, so they did 2 of them, and they were both for free, and I still have them. So I have these free banners, fine. And then I would have like other things that were just done. The bank, I had a thing happen where I had a banking issue, and the bank person helped me out in a way. She goes, I don't even know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it. I'm going to help you out through this thing. And it just kept growing. There was more and more assistance and support out of nowhere. And people would say to me suggestions. Like one of the things that they would say is, the woman who did the banners for free said, there's a designer here, a jeweler, and you should show them your work. I was like, okay. There's a phrase, as I say yes to life, life says yes to me. So I was like, I've nothing to lose. I'll go. Fine. So I went, and then we ended up having a conversation, and then they recommended all these people to me. And then they ended up asking me one day for a file, and then I said, sure. And then they asked me to come back, and then for nothing, they did this, which is expensive, just to give it to me. And I said, don't you want any money? They go, no, just wear it. I was like, fine. So I wear this thing, great. And then I continue to do the readings, and now we're at a point where they're like, we want you to do gallery readings. And I went, a gallery reading? I haven't done that before. And they're like, no, we think you can. I went, okay. So I go up into this person's home. I meet 20 people I have never, or 19, 20 people I have never met before. I have no idea what's going on. And I went through one at a time. I did a reading. This is what's going on with you. This is what's going on with you. This is what's going on with you. Then I collected it energetically. And then they wouldn't leave. They wouldn't leave. They were all there for like ever. So then all of these people are like, well, we want a mandala. We want artwork. I got about 7 or 8 orders. And it just kept rolling. And then the people who before were telling me about my own intuition, the ones that started me off, said, you can't do that. Like I was telling them I was going to do this event, and they said, that's impossible. You can only do gallery readings after you've been trained. You cannot do that. But I trusted it. And the people who observed it, who had held the event, said, are you sure you haven't done this before? Because you did it like you've been doing it all your life. And I went, I mean it. I have not done that before. And people didn't believe, people were like, no, I was lying. I'm like, why would I do that? Why would I lie about that? No, I just trusted it. I just trusted it, and I let go, and I moved on, and it was fine. And then I would get invitations to do gallery shows. I get this big launch for this gallery show at this big shop. And this place that sells jewelry and has holistics, and they have a big event where they're going to reopen, and they put me as the person who was the art person then. And I had all of these pieces of art. I had another woman out of that event call me and tell me I need something for my shop. And I did a major installation or I did the artwork for the installation of the front of the building. And they just kept going because I kept saying yes to it. I kept saying, I don't know where this is going, but I trust in my process of it. And more recommendations would come. And I'm not really promoting. I mean, I know that this is a form of promotion. I do have people who I work with who do run their promotion. There's people who are very animate about it, but it's not something that I really do very much. And then I get more people, and then I get products start coming up. And then I start looking at, okay, what can I start creating? How can I implement these things? And I put them on thinking of different ways in which I can put them on objects that I could then sell, like mugs, etc. So this thing is continuing to grow and continuing to get bigger and bigger. And now the word is out. And now I'm getting more and more people wanting readings. I'm getting readings from Virginia. I'm getting readings from Florida. I had readings from Spain recently. I have readings from Greece. And I'm just mystified by this, but it's because I just decided, I remember when it was so low, when I had really bottomed out, I had nowhere to go but up. I remember thinking no matter what I do and how much I might mess it up, nothing could be as bad as what I was going through. So I was just went, screw it. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to trust. I'm not going to have any attachment to outcome. I'm just going to wing this and see what happens. And I'm going to do my best. All I have to do is just show up. If I show up, the rest will take care of itself. And then I get more recommendations, and I start working with things like Ghost Adventures in Savannah, Georgia, where I'm talking to this man and doing assistance with his group down there. Ghost Adventures in New Jersey, where I'm doing investigations. I did one last week. I'm going to do another one this coming Saturday. I do work with businesses and assisting them in handling how the things work collectively, and how that they somehow or another, how you take the energy to work. And all of this based on my years of experience is very interesting, because when I look back on it, it makes sense. Going forward, it made no sense. Why would my marketing that failed and other things that failed all of a sudden go nowhere? But now they come back, but they come back in the format of psychic intuitive art work that then can be, I can implement that on for me. Because my thing has been, for a lot of intuitives like this, there's this issue of codependency, because empaths are very sensitive to other people's needs, and we're always trying to be there because we feel so deeply. And I was in my own way, which in retrospect makes more sense, because I was so there for everybody else, but I wasn't there for me. And the universe is going, no, you do not get to do that. You need to be there for you. We will not let you proceed. And I had to back up and do it this way. And I only got it through all of the stuff that I went through. Otherwise, it would make no sense. So now I have all of these, endless different products, where I do things where I have stuff like a vinyl, this vinyl cling thing manufactured by a guy in Florida, very, very inexpensive. There's endless kinds of solutions that go with it. I have stuff that goes on with having stained glass. Commissioned a big stained glass piece with a company in New Hope. I have endless cards that I'm working on. And each of these things has its own affirmation on it. I have done this entire collection of cutouts, jewelry, you name it. And then I was struggling with, okay, well, what am I going to do with the implementation? Because I don't know how to do it. And then I forgot that there was a company that I know that's not far from me that can handle this. And they were all excited to do it. Now I'm launching a product. I have endless support. I have all of these options going on. I can handle the price point of it. And I'm beginning with the things that really make sense to me. It's not just that I'm doing things for, just other people's images, I'm creating a chakra series is what I'm going to launch. And again, it makes sense now, but it would never have made sense looking back on it. So this is where I'm going. This is what's happening. Any questions? Then I'll continue on with some further discussion.
I don't have any questions, but I love, I guess, the moral of the story of, you know, of doors opening when you allow them to open. Yeah. And I think that's so true for so many people. When you're ready for something to happen, the door opens to allow you to do it, but you still have to walk through that door and just say, okay, let me explore that. Let me see where that takes us. And I love how you do that in every single aspect. And I've also watched you go through this for 2 or 3 years. So it's been amazing just to kind of watch your journey and see you expand in so many ways, but always with this way of, let's see what happens. Let's see where the universe is taking us.
I really don't. Yeah. I mean, some people may look at this as some kind of master plan that I kind of conjured up and like, oh, you know, did you just, no. I had no, if you had told me 3 years ago that I would be able to do as well as I'm doing now, I would have said you're nuts.
Yeah. So what do you think was that mind shift change from when?
What's that?
I was going to say, what do you think was that mind shift change of when you say like you were kind of down in your dumps, you know, and dealing with depression to opening up this world? Like there had to be a shift.
Yeah, I think there was, I had nothing left to lose.
Get that.
I would love to say something like, well, you know, I saw this bird and it symbolized, none of that. It was, I had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
You know, I just had nowhere else to go. All I could do from where I was step into whatever it was that I felt that I had some, I don't know, remote ability in. I had confidence in what I could do. I did. And I had a feeling like it had value. But I had to, just to give you a sense of my background here. My father, gifted, intuitive, brilliant. He had said to me when I was in high school, take an art class, take an art class. I said, oh, that's for losers. I don't want to take an art class, screw that. I'm going to take AP, whatever, you know, and I would be all in the science and the pragmatism, but I was still talking about it philosophically. I was still getting into the ideas of it, the concepts. I would have all of these discussions in high school that were very, very involved, very philosophical. I mean, I remember acing my philosophy class as a freshman that was a senior level course just because I loved the whole concept of questioning and looking at things, but I just didn't have an outlet. Because one of the things that I love about spirituality is that it exists within a state of consciousness of awe. It doesn't really, I mean, a lot of people try to make it into some kind of like system that, you know, you have to do this and this and this and this, and then you're going to get this, and you have to do 10 hours of meditation. And no, I don't get that. I think you have to figure out for yourself what works for you. I think you have to understand yourself enough to understand your own process. And you have to then figure out for yourself, based on that, your own awareness, what you want to do. You can't have somebody, I mean, I would never say to somebody, well, you know, this is, I mean, I do work as a facilitator, but I would never tell them like, you need to blah, blah, blah. No, they have to be responsible for their own experience. They have to figure out what's working for them. And even if I make a suggestion or somehow or another stumble upon something that actually nails it, they're the one who implement it and they're the ones who are doing it. It's not me. I am a trusted servant. I do not govern. That is to me it in a nutshell. And if I lose my modesty and if I lose my sense of wonder, I am screwed. Because at the moment that I do that and I say, I'm an artist, I remember Marianne Williamson talking about how, you know, anybody knows about her, Course of Miracles, blah, 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 running for president, all sorts of fun things. So Marianne Williamson was doing a presentation and she was talking about singing and how she loved to sing and she was going on about singing and it was great. And then after she had some success, she got into, I'm a singer. And then it fell apart. It died a horrible death. Because the process is what matters. The destination is irrelevant. It doesn't, I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous, but it doesn't mean anything because we're always moving on to something else. So you become president of the United States, or you become king of the universe. Fine, who cares? What are you going to do next? What's next? Where is this going? What are you going to do? And from a position of a process. From a process. I mean, I can read and try to educate myself. I can be one of those people that collects merit badges. You know, that's very big in holistics. I studied Reiki. I studied this. I studied this. I can speak with authority on it. Okay, good for you. Who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean much because if the question is it working for you? Is it what you want to do? Because nobody's going to do that for you. No one's going to tell you what your skills really are. No one's going to tell you what your essence is. No one's going to tell you what your whole destiny or your raison d'etre. No one. It's none of their damn business anyway. Even if they knew, they have no business telling you because your sense of self, your own journey is your own. And it's up to you to embrace that and say, screw you guys if you don't get it, because I don't care. I had to go and do an about face and say, even though I have 40 plus years, more than that, of doing the kind of work that I do, I would essentially turn my back on it. I remember when I wasn't getting any kind of healthy feedback or any kind of like support in the jobs searches that I was doing. I remember this is something that maybe you're getting at here, Camille, is I remember thinking, I guess I shouldn't be doing this. I guess I shouldn't be doing this. Life is not honoring it. Life doesn't make mistakes. I might make a mistake. Life doesn't make a mistake.
Right. Yeah, I think, like you said, it's trusting the process. And they always say, like, money loves momentum.
Yeah.
Right. So as long as you keep moving towards something or your higher self or more achievements, but not in a way of just doing to be busy, but doing to be more. Yeah.
Pursuing one of the, I mentioned this before in our talks. People will tell me this all the time, and it's just so irritating. They'll be like, how do I make a better universe? How do I make a difference in the world?
Start looking in the mirror. Yeah. It starts with you.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what you have to say. Be a better person. Be you. First of all, this is one of the other things that I kind of got in this process. I think looking back on it, I was trying to be something that I wasn't. And I didn't even get it. I was so blind to it. But life has a way of whittling that down. That's why, as much as we're in this youth culture and everybody wants everybody to look like they're like 20 years old, there is an incredible thing that happens when life carves away the falsehoods. And we become, my parents used to tell me, as we age, we become more like ourselves, hopefully. And if we're in resistance to our own identity, that's where we get illness, inflammation, and problems. Because if we're not pursuing the thing that's true for us, whether or not anybody gets it is irrelevant. If we're not pursuing it for us, and even if we, people will say, well, you can't speak that to that person because they don't get you. Who cares? Do you get it? Does it work with you? Do you feel that that's true? Then speak it. It's not about convincing other people of whether or not it's true. That's on them. What other people think about me is none of my damn business. I really mean, it's none of my damn business. That's on them. If they want to perceive me in some kind of way, in some kind of light, good for them. I don't really, I mean, certainly I'm influenced by it. I would be lying if I said I didn't care, but really in a bigger way, it really isn't important to me because I'm going to do what I do regardless.
Absolutely.
And life will tell me, life will let me know. I trust that. And I think when you were mentioning that earlier, Camille, about how, like, you're talking about what is the thing that indicated to you, it was that. It was the awareness that the cause and effect, or just the effect, if you would, of what was happening was my kind of golden rule. And all I had to do was just trust that. And if it wasn't working, trust that. If it is working, trust that. The proof is in the pudding. The reality is in the expression of it. It's just self-evident. And then I keep building on that. And then I go this way, and then I go that way. I go up, I go down. I keep shifting based on whatever it is that's being working for me, whatever is being demanded. And then there's a lesson on that. And that lesson was what matters. The lesson in this beautiful laboratory that we go through, this lab of experiential growth, has all of these little tests, you know, mayhem, disease, death, all sorts of fun stuff. And each of those little tests is how it is that we learn the dimensions of our own spirit and capabilities and get to reflect on those and adjust them as needed. Maybe I'm like, you know, I love being an idiot. I'm going to continue being an idiot. I'm offending everybody. Great. Yay. Or I want to be able to address something that's causing me heartache because I don't like it. And then I can work on that too. But in the laboratory of existence, the key is the engagement and the involvement in it. I think one of the things that I saw recently on longevity that I found so fascinating is when they were listing all of these things on why people live as long as they do. They were, you know, things like your diet, your exercise, your, you know, whether or not you get your flu shot, blah, 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 all of that. Irrelevant compared to this. In the 80 to 90 percentile of those that were long-lived, supercentenarians, etc., the key factor was their ability to talk to strangers.
I'm dead.
And family support. Family support was second, by the way.
I've got some issues.
No, your ability to talk to people and be engaging.
I'm engaging if they talk first. Longevity has to do with people talking to me. That's disappointingly.
It's honest. It's honest. Honest is good. Yeah, your willingness to speak your own reality.
I do speak my truth, but someone has to ask.
I like that. So, you know, so your ability to engage in your universe is how it is that you can then connect with it in such a way that you get the feedback and the intel that lets you know where you are, which means that you're creating a mindful, meaningful existence. You can do this all sorts of ways. You don't have to be talking per se, but you can engage. There's other energetic ways of engaging. You can do it through meditation. You can do it through all sorts of fun things. But if you're not engaged, if I'm not in my moment, present here, and I'm somewhere else, I'm wasting my time. And life will not let that happen for long.
I agree.
Who's going to die because they're the ones who've checked out. If you have hearing loss and you haven't put your hearing aid in, you have a high chance of getting Alzheimer's. If you have some kind of detachment from reality, you have dementia. If you continue to have like that kind of dementia or disassociation, it leads to death. Engagement, participation in the experience of our reality is where it is that we get to really discover ourselves. And if we're not playing in the game, however we play that's engaging, then life is like, we're going to take that energy and we're going to put it into somebody who's going to use it. because clearly you're done. You're like cooked. You're like, like, and I respect that too. I have worked with people who I'm like, okay, so if you want to go, we should talk about that. And that's okay. It's okay to not want to live anymore. That's fine. There's nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. No judgment on that. Because that's what that person wants. Buddhist monks do it all the time. They're like, you know what? TikTok, did my thing, checking out. Yay. We don't have to do anything. We're not under any kind of obligation to, whatever we want to do, we can do. But if we're saying one thing and doing another, that's what I'm drawing attention to, then we've got some problems. So we engage up to the point where we've had enough, then we go. And we come back, then we go, come back, well, right?
Understood. Yeah. I just want to open up the floor if anyone else has any other questions. I don't see any on Facebook at this moment.
I don't have a question, but
Yes.
a couple of comments and things that I took from this. First of all, I love the laboratory of existence. I love the idea of that and everything that connotes for me. This is thank you, Lee, for this. This is just a great reminder of things that I have been discovering for myself, and what self-care truly is. It's not about doing all the external stuff. It's about taking care of my soul and listening to where my soul is calling me. And I also got a really clear view of nuance of what free will is, because Camille, when you said the door is open and it's our choice to walk through it, if the universe is providing us all these opportunities that we asked for, unless we take advantage of them, they're gone. So thank you, Lee. This has been very timely for me.
Yeah, and also in the engagement. So when I'm doing the kind of work that I'm doing with people that has a sort of coaching, mentoring thing to it, I pay very close attention to what I'm saying because it usually reflects on me. I mean, that's the point of it, to drill into these ideas and a shared experience. So that we can collectively, through the exchange of ideas, shine light on what it is that we want to address or not address, but at least recognize is true. Because otherwise we're living in some kind of, I don't know, projection or delusion of what it is, but through the engagement of the world, there are patterns that are going to show up, and those patterns have a meaning to them. And to look at those patterns is very important. And personal growth is worth it right to the last minute, right to the last second. There is a woman that had problems with alcoholism, and I knew, and that she was in and out of program forever. And then the last 4 years, she was sober, and she died sober. So she died sober. She did it. There's a thing too, and I hate this, because part of like my process is I didn't get into any of the stuff that I'm talking about here deeply to the point where I'm doing what I'm doing till I was in my 60s. I mean, it's hard to, a lot of people are like, well, you can just go with Social Security, retire. Who cares? I'm not doing that. I want to go in and continue to play up until the end. I'm not dead yet. I want to go out and engage. I want to have fun. I want to be able to participate. This is interesting to me. I like this. I don't want to check out on some kind of lounge and watch Netflix all day. That's so boring. I want to be in the process. I want to connect with people. I want to learn. I'm curious. I'm fascinated by things. And I wanted to, because you know what? That I might be able to take with me, because I'll be working through that. I can reincarnate and say, hey, look, did this. Acquisition of stuff, well, as a process and being able to acquire something that has value, but learning the lesson of life and learning my own experience, so in a way that I don't have to repeat it, yay. Otherwise, we're going to go back and do it again. I really do feel that if I don't get it, there's plenty of time, because we can do it one more time. Welcome back, Lee. We're going to address your issues now. Glad we got your attention. We're redoing it again.
I love that. Well, Lee, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. and being a part of our community share. It is live on Facebook. We also post for YouTube channels. So as people ask questions, if you're watching this in replay, let us know that you are watching this in replay, and we can tag Lee so he can answer any questions for you, and you can get his information as well. I'm so excited that you were able to do this. I thought it was just a fantastic hour of wisdom.
Thank you.
You are very, very welcome.
I really think that for anybody out there, whoever you are, once you have that feeling, that intensity, or that passion about something, and I'm talking about egocentric, avarice, where you're all like fighting stuff, but some kind of like curiosity or interest, pursue it. Pursue it. I don't care how weird it is. Pursue it. We're at a point, because I've been discovering so many people recently who have so many abilities, that we're kind of at this sort of awakening, I'm calling it. And it's just, you can just see, if you just look at the amount of holistics, it's crazy. And then there's all of these like new systems and sciences coming up. And then there's all of these studies going on where we're taking with the traditional science and melding it with intuitive stuff and understanding how it is that people can do remote viewing, and how intention works. There's been studies in MIT about how consciousness influences reality. There's a theory of everything, the E8 principle, and how that works. And all of this is happening and expanding at the speed of light. And we're moving more from the world of materialism into the world of spirit. We're working more we're letting go of the egocentric ideas of power, getting back to personal development, which is where we really feel a sense of satisfaction, because controlling other people is impossible. We can get them to agree with what we want, but we cannot control them. We don't have the authority to do that. It's beyond our abilities. But we do have some semblance over ourselves. And once we start doing that and implementing those kinds of actions that better us through trusting our own process, we will feel better. I think that that's pretty much a pretty obvious standard, because now I'm not dependent on outside things that I have to manipulate and control at some exhausting level so that I have no more energy left. I want to pass out. And I take that energy, I take care of myself, I use that energy, and then I feel like, wow, I am capable of handling life's challenges because I can trust myself to be there for myself when I